Fair enough? So, my name is Clayton Anderson. I am from the great state of Nebraska. Do you know where Nebraska is?
Yeah.
Yes? Everybody does? You do? Okay, good. Well, it's in the United States, of course. It's in the United States. But I come from Ashland, Nebraska. It's a really small town. There were about 2,000 people where I grew up. And then I went to Hastings. You don't care where I went to school, but I got a physics degree, like she said, and an aerospace degree. Then I came down and I worked 30 years for NASA just across the street. I worked 15 years as an engineer, 15 years as an astronaut. So I got selected as an astronaut in 1998. And then I would fly twice on board Atlantis up to the space station, where I would live for 5 months. Came home on Discovery, and then I went back 3 years later on Discovery up for a 15-day mission to the space station and back. Okay? 6 spacewalks over my career. I retired from NASA in 2013. Wow. I have a son, I have a daughter, I have a wife. We live about 8 miles south of here. And I also wrote 3 books that are available in the gift shop downstairs. Later today, I'll be autographing books.
Oh my God.
Hint, 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 hint. No? Not a good hint? You know you want one, don't you? At least one, come on.
Oh wow. I want to buy a book.
I read 3 books. Ordinary Spaceman is my first one. Then I wrote a children's book called A is for Astronaut, which is really cool. And then I wrote a 3rd one called It's a Question of Space, which would be really cool for almost everyone in this room. And then I have a 4th book coming out. It's a children's book. It'll be out in 2020. Ooh. Collect the whole set. Okay, so now it's time for questions and answers. Ask me anything you want. If I don't know the answer, I'll make something up. Go.
How does it feel to, when they say you that you're going to live in the International Space Station?
How does it feel when they tell me I'm going to go into space and live there? Oh, it's pretty cool. It's like if somebody came up to you and said, you just won $1 million, how would that feel? Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, when I was a baby astronaut, when I first got picked, you don't even think about flying in space because you have so many years to go where you are going to have to work and train and practice, and so nobody even talks to you about flight assignment, right? Until the point where you've proven that you're good enough, that you can do the spacewalk thing, that you can do all the systems, you know how to run the toilet and the kitchen and all that stuff. And then you get to the point where somebody looks at you and says, we think this person is ready to fly. And then they try to do this secret thing, which doesn't always work well, where they surprise you. And they didn't really surprise me my first time. They called me on the weekend, they said, hey, and it wasn't even the main boss. Usually it's the big boss, right? The astronaut's boss calls you and says, hello, Clay. I'd like you to fly in space. That didn't happen for me. Some podunk boss that wasn't even the big dog calls and says, hey, are you still interested in going into space? Well, yeah, I think so. And then she said, well, would you rather go on the space shuttle or the space station? I don't care. I just want to go to space.
All of it.
Well, I think they're thinking about sending you to the space station, so you might want to call the boss and ask him. What? So I call the boss, the big boss. I say, hey, this is Clay. I was told to call you about flying in space. He goes, oh yeah, are you still interested? we did this already. And then he said, well, do you want to do space station or space shuttle? I said, which one will get me into space fastest? So then we talked about it. He goes, well, I really don't know. But I think if you fly to the space station, you probably get there sooner. All right. So I said, yes. Next thing I know, I'm headed to Russia. And I spent 3.5 years traveling between Houston and Russia, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Right? And living in Russia is difficult. America's pretty easy, but Russia's pretty difficult. And a whole new culture, a whole new way of life, and a bunch of people speaking a language I didn't know. Они сказали, Клей, ты понимаешь информации? Yes. Like, you understand the information? No. But I had to learn how to speak Russian. I had to work pretty hard for 3.5 years. A lot of travel. You guys like to travel? Yeah? Do you? How about every other month you have to travel from Houston to Moscow, Moscow to Houston, Houston, Moscow, Moscow to Houston. It gets pretty old for 3.5 years. And I had a little girl who was 6 and a little boy who was 10. No, actually, she was 2 when I started, and he was 6, you know, so I had to leave my little kids quite a bit. So it was tough. But anyway, you go, yes, it's exciting. It is. It really is. It just didn't happen the way everybody tells you it's supposed to happen. All the astronauts tell you, well, they're gonna call you, and they're gonna surprise you, and they'll call you down to the office, and you won't know what's going on. You think you're in trouble, and they'll sit you down in a chair, and then they'll go, hey, you wanna go to space? You're on STS 121. And then you run out of the room, and you call your wife, and you call your kids, and you call your mom, and you call your dad, and you tell them you're going to space. That's how it's supposed to be. It kind of happened for me the second time when I went back in 2010. I got to go down to the office, and actually I was in trouble at that time. I don't know if you guys believe it, but I'm kind of a troublemaker. So I go down to the office, and I think I'm going to get lectured by the boss. And he calls me in, and I go, am I in trouble? And he said, no, you're not in trouble. Sit down. I said, are you sure I'm not in trouble? And he goes, you want to fly? And I said, what, you going to fly me to Orlando? What? He goes, no, you want a space flight? Well, yeah. And he told me I was assigned. So then I actually did get to leave the office, and I ran out. I called my wife, and I kind of fibbed to her, and I said, hey, we need to talk. Meet me, so-and-so, we met. And I told her that I was flying again. I hugged her, I kissed her, we cried, and off it went. So there you go. That's a really long answer, isn't it? Sorry. Oh well. Next question.